it's Hayley from Craft Yourself Silly, and we're going to show you how to create one of our lovely fabric go-rounds. A bit of a gap, but a really nice way to store all of your fabrics where you can actually see what you've got, and it looks so pretty as well. So when you get the box, what comes in the box? You get the you get the top piece, you get 2 of these starburst pieces, and that's what the bolts will slide into. You get a base piece, which is the thicker 6mm one, and then you get the kind of bottom piece that goes on there. So they're the 5 circular bits you get. You also get the central structural tube. You'll get the Lazy Susan mechanism and the little screws that you need to put it together as well. So what we're going to do is take you through the first couple of steps that you need to start putting this together. So what you will need to add, which doesn't come in the kit, is some PVA glue or wood adhesive. Now, it's fairly easy to get hold of. PVA will do the job beautifully, so most people have got that in their stash somewhere. And we're going to do a little bit of gluing, 2 different pieces. So we're going to take one of the starbursts and glue it onto that thinner of the 2 base pieces. And the other starburst, we're going to take that and we're going to glue that onto the top piece. So what you should see once you've glued it together is 2 concentric circles. So a little bit of a step there which will allow you to attach it to your central piece. So I'm going to pop some glue on, get those stuck together, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes. So while your 2 starburst pieces are drying, what you can do is you can start adding in the assembly for your Lazy Susan. Now, there are 2 parts to this. It comes as a single piece, but you can see one side, excuse the fingers, look, I've got so much glue in them. One side you can see has holes which are further out, and then the other side has holes which are a little bit further in. You want to attach your piece to this big 6mm piece first, because that's got the location hole for when you screw it into the other side. So just try both sides and make sure you can check which side lines up, which is not this one, because you can see that one lines up, but none of my other 3 do. So I need to flip that over, and then they line up perfectly. So that's definitely the right side. What I'm going to do first, though, is just take a crosshead screwdriver and just quickly give a little turn into each of these holes. They've been pre-cut with a laser, but by putting that little turn in, what you'll find is it helps the screw to get a bit more bite. I apologise for the forklift truck, but where our offices are, we are quite an industrial area, so unfortunately it happens now and again. But it's better than the printer. That's usually going throughout all of this. So I'm just going to line that up again, and then pop my screw in, get a couple of turns on it just with my hand, and then screw it in with the excessively large screwdriver that I seem to have today. There we go. So I just need to repeat this process for the other 3 holes. So that's the base, the Lazy Susan base, attached to the bottom of the fabric go round. What we can do now these are dry is we can start attaching it all together. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue around the bottom here. So just quite a nice chunky bead of glue all the way around. Ooh, not get my sleeves in it. There we go. That's plenty. And then we're going to slide that into place. And then to attach the top, before we actually stick it in, what I'm going to do is get some of the bolts and just slide those into place and get a spirit level on them to make sure that they're nice and straight, because you can see there's actually quite a lot of movement in there before you get it Okay, let me just move this to the side so we can see. There you go. So you can see there's quite a lot of movement in it before you get it exactly straight. So if you just pop that in and then using spirit level, just level that up so it's horizontal, vertical before you start. And I would advise putting 3 or 4 of these in just to make sure that everything's exactly as it should be before you glue that down. But what you can do is put the glue in, because there's about a kind of 3 or 4 minute working time window when you're using PVA glue. There's a little bit of wiggle room on it. So you need to apply the glue. There we go, let's just get that little bit in there as well. And pop that on the top. Give it a press down, and then this is the point that you will add those bolts and just make sure that they're nice and level before you let that glue dry. So while we're letting this dry, it's another 10 minutes later job, I'm afraid. So while we're letting that dry, what I'm going to show you is how to get the fabric onto the bolts. So here's one that we did earlier, so I'm just going to whip that pin out. And this is a 1/2 metre. Now the fabric go round will take 64 1/2 metres. It will take 32 full metres. Sometimes if it's quite a thin fabric, you might get a little bit more on. There are some on here like this one here. That one's actually 2 fat quarters, so you can get an awful lot of fabric stored in quite a small space. So this is a 45-inch width fabric. It's actually just folded into 4, so folded in half and then folded in half again. I'm going to take the bolt and pop it to the edge there. You want enough of the bolt sticking out top and bottom, so a little bit top and bottom, so there's enough to slide it in. And away we go. And just after that first turn, if you just put your hand on it and pull it backwards to pull it nice and tight, then you're away. I just need to get not quite straight there, so I'm just going to undo that and just take it across a little bit. That's it, just to make sure I'm nice and straight and I've got that little bit poking out top and bottom, because that's what's going to allow me to slide it into my unit. Oh, with a pin sometimes. Pin sometimes helps. Actually, if you've got a lot of fabric in, you shouldn't need to pin it because the fabric will hold itself in. But if you've just got the odd 1 or 2 in, then a pin really, really helps to stop it flying apart. So I had one, it's just here, and then I can just slide that in the back. So once everything's dried, the last step is to attach the rotating base to the fabric go round to make it go round. So what we're going to do is, I'll just take that out temporarily. I'm going to take the whole unit. Now the glue's still a little bit wet on here, so I would ideally leave it 24 hours before you put it together. And then taking this piece, what you'll notice is there's a little location hole on the top there, and that should line up with those screw holes that are in the Lazy Susan. But before you go ahead and put that on, you need to do the same as you did with the base and just use a crosshead screwdriver and just twist it in each of those holes, just to allow your screws to have that little bit more grip when you start them off. So that's going to be lined up on the top, and you line the first one up. It's a little bit more tricky this, because you've got to first of all line the screw up, but you've got to do this, line the screw up through the hole as well. And if you drop your screws in, you could try and find them. So let me just line that up. There we go, and then just tighten it in. I'm going to repeat that for the other 4. So just turn the thing round, and if you, when you've tightened it up, you've missed your hole slightly, you can just slide it and adjust it a little bit. There you go, to get it back in. And I'll just do the other 3, and then we'll turn it back right side up. So that's the last screw in. So now that Lazy Susan base is completely attached, I'm just going to turn this right side up again. There you go. And you're all done. It's ready to go. What you now need to do is you need to add all your fabric. Just remember to add it kind of evenly, so you're balancing it as you go around, because if you add it all in one side, what you'll end up doing is kind of putting stress on that Lazy Susan and putting stress on the fabric around. So if you can load it up fairly evenly, that will really help. So I hope you really enjoy your fabric go round.